Hey, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer and also a channel and an energy worker. And at tdjacobs.com, there's a lot of interesting tools and experiences that you could choose to partake in, and home study healing courses and consultations and programmed crystals and all kinds of things. And at healingsuicide.com, it's a story about soul and how it sees your human lives and how to learn to work with the deepest emotions that can make us feel despair. So I encourage you to check both of those out. This video is, well, what happens after the Chiron return? So this is part of a series of videos here on my channel about Chiron. And I encourage you to check out the Chiron and energy management, the intro Chiron videos. And then, of course, I have it on all the houses and most of the signs are covered at this point. And there's one on the Chiron return. But I want to just offer you this insight. If you're sitting there, like your Chiron return is around age 50, figure 49 to 51, maybe almost 2 years if you're using an orb of 2 or 2.5 degrees, maybe a little over 2 years. And essentially a door is open to healing a childhood wound. For me, the Chiron wound, as explained in all these videos, is a sense of rejection by our caregivers or parents at birth or just after birth. And that's because Chiron's first wound is rejection by the mother at birth in the mythology. We focus on this idea of the wound that can't be healed, and I think that's a distraction from the kind of wound that you can't even conceive of healing versus like, oh, I'm suffering and I've been poisoned and oh, I can't heal anything. The first wound needs attention. So that's the basis of my Chiron teaching, and that's unique in astrology, that focusing on the wound is that thing. You can get the Chiron Natal Report and also the Chiron book that I offer to explain this whole story. The Chiron Natal Report will delineate Chiron in your own chart, including transit progressions. And if you're around the time of the return itself. But the idea of the return is Chiron has circled your whole chart, so it's made an orbit around the sun in approximately 50 years. And it's about a 50-year orbit. It is elliptical, but around age 50, we each have this Chiron return. And a door is open, like Chiron's energy sensitivity is infusing the inner child wound, which is energetically sensitive to emotion. So I like to think of it as a door is open to the inner child. And quite often I'll deal with people who are 50 or 49 and a half or 50 and 3/4, and they'll say, everything was fine. And then suddenly I was overwhelmed by sensitivity to noises or people's emotions, or it could be anything, or the news or the energy in the world. It could be anything. But the door is open to reaching the inner child, to bring compassion, to bring healing, to bring acceptance, to love yourself in the ways that others haven't or couldn't. I often tell people with Chiron work to make a list of what you wish your parents could have been for you or done for you when you were young, what kind of parent you wish you had, essentially. Even if yours meant well and did amazing things, you might have had an unmet need that you're challenged during your life to meet yourself. So make a list of what they couldn't do for you or the ways that you felt not loved or supported or encouraged or safe, and then do that for yourself now. So during the return, this door is open. Like quite often before the return, there's a sense of tiredness because it's in that balsamic phase, the last of the phases. And you're wrapping up essentially strategies, like, balsamic phase, you let things go. You're essentially wrapping up the strategies you've employed. Then at the return, this door is open and you're more sensitive. The opportunity is to meet the emotional unmet need of the inner child, right? Well, what happens after? Maybe you're 53, maybe you're 57, maybe you're 60, and you're watching this video saying, oh my God, I didn't meet the need of the inner child. This video is for you. Let's say that at 50, something opened up and you didn't know what it was. Let's say that my Chiron teaching makes sense to you, but you didn't know it then. You hadn't encountered it then, or I hadn't channeled it then. I started channeling all this stuff in 2008. What can you do now? So the door might have remained open if the needs of self-validation weren't met. So some people after a return like this might linger in that vulnerability, that sensitivity, that feeling like I don't know who's going to meet my needs, or I don't understand why I feel so sensitive, or why I might feel helpless. I'm 53 years old. Why do I feel so helpless? It would be because of the Chiron thing, right? The unmet need. Just because transiting Chiron moves on beyond a few degrees past your natal Chiron placement doesn't mean that you answered the call to be the source of compassion, validation, love, and support that your inner child needs. Now, a lot of people might come to this and say, oh yes, I know about the inner child through my travels in psychology or therapy or something. What I want to really impress upon you, bring all that wisdom with you, yes, and realize it's not about talking or thinking or conceptualizing. A lot of people might do inner child work, but not get into the heart. The key is the heart. It's easy to do psychological work on ourselves, or self-help, or even with therapist-type people, counselors who are officially trained and certified, without getting into feeling the emotional vulnerability of that kid. So that might be what's waiting for you in processing the Chiron wound after the return. How to deal with vulnerability. How to essentially acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with you, that you feel vulnerable, or that you feel scared sometimes. Sometimes you don't feel safe. That sometimes you don't know what's going to happen next, and it's a problem. While your 53 or 60 or 65-year-old self might say, yeah, I understand that's part of life, but part of you might feel kind of locked into that concern or fear or worry or anxiety. How can you do that? And it's in processing the feeling of that part of you, processing the fear, validating your emotions in ways that maybe others didn't when you were younger or haven't since. Again, to learn to love ourselves in the ways that others haven't or wouldn't or couldn't or didn't. This is Chiron maturity. And for me, Chiron health and Chiron maturity necessarily involve, not like could involve, but definitely involve acknowledging our own vulnerability and sensitivity in the ways that others don't. Like one of my examples is Chiron in Aries. When I was teased as a child, even by well-meaning relatives, I was hypersensitive to it. I was hypersensitive to anything that felt like aggression. So teasing is not the same as bullying, but my part of me that felt unsafe interpreted them the same way. And even now, as I'm 47 and a half, inching toward my Chiron return, I'm aware of, like, I have these memories the last couple of years of, like, how I would go into such pain when someone who loved me teased me. And I'm like, whoa, really? But anyway, I can actually bring a validation to that sensitivity, which can help soothe it. Because those people would say, well, I'm just teasing you. It's not a big deal. What's wrong? What happened? I didn't do anything. Or I'm only teasing you. What's wrong? So it's like I have to validate that in myself. I have to acknowledge that, yeah, I conflated that. I misinterpret that because part of me doesn't feel safe around Aries energy, aggression, which can also include teasing and joshing, right? That kind of thing. So anyway, don't mean to make this about me, but that sense of how can I validate my feeling or my fear or my concern or worry? How can I acknowledge my experience in a way nobody else does, so that part of me feels safe and I know I have the right to be here and exist and feel what I feel and need what I need. So check out the other Chiron videos and get your own Chiron Natal Report through tdjacobs.com. We'll delineate your whole chart from the standpoint of Chiron, including if it's retrograde, house sign, natal aspects, and also transit progressions to your Chiron, and then transits of Chiron to other bodies in your chart. So it's quite an extensive, in-depth report. But check that out at tdjacobs.com. And so what can you do if the doors open after the Chiron return You learn how to be with yourself as an emotional big sibling, or become the kind of parent that you needed by acknowledging and validating your feelings and your fears in ways that others haven't. Therefore, you feel loved by yourself in ways that others haven't been able to for any reason or weren't willing to. So anyway, check out everything I do at tdjacobs.com and take care of yourself.